Hi, I'm Nadia Dunn. Welcome to CCL TV and our More Than Packages platform here at WMX Americas in Miami. Clint, thank you so much for joining us today. Clint's here from Zonos. Tell us a bit about yourself and the company, Clint.
Thanks for having me, Nadia. So Zonos is a cross-border enablement product. So we enable mostly e-commerce retailers to sell their products internationally without the headache of packages getting stopped in customs because they didn't know what the tariffs were and the person didn't want to pay it. So we help all of that occur at the time of the checkout. So the shopper then internationally can just see the total entire cost, pay for it all, and just get it delivered without any of the, hopefully minimizing the customs impact of, things getting held up.
And how does your company simplify cross-border e-commerce for companies?
First off, e-commerce platforms are not built for cross-border. They're, 95% probably of sales of a typical online retailer are domestic, and it depends. It varies on your product and where you're at. So there's a big technology gap on the e-commerce platform. So we simplify it by having pre-integrated plugins. If you're on Shopify or BigCommerce or Magento, and just kind of like an app on your phone, right? You just install it and then immediately start giving an experience to the international shopper that's a lot more localized. Mm-hmm. And even when the international shopper arrives, we have products that will recognize where they're located and set their expectations of especially with some of the new tax laws, like with Brexit and things like that. Like there's been a lot of chaos there. We will help definitely set the expectations of the shopper all the way through the shopping experience, and hopefully it's just a simple plugin. And if not, and if the company's more sophisticated, we have APIs that they integrate.
Right. Okay. Tell us about that.
So the API specifically can do anything from classifying a good. So like for instance, this suit or your dress have different harmonized codes to clear customs. This is what tariffs are, calculated on. So you have to know what that number is. So these APIs will, automatically classify goods, through some AI and through, a bit of machine learning, and that allows for, once you have that code, then you can start doing all these calculations. So those APIs can be integrated for a lot of use cases. It can be at time of checkout. It can be integrated by a shipping platform possibly. But really the APIs are what's behind all of our services, even our services that have front end. You can see it happening, right? So there's something in the back end doing all that magic.
Yeah, and what's the impact of the pandemic on the company?
Well, it's been interesting. So originally it was a massive spike. Well, okay, that's not true. The first month it was a massive drop, and then it went to definitely a spike in volume over probably the first year of the pandemic. What's been interesting though is retail overall grew slightly year over year from 2020 to 2021. Cross-border didn't. So things like Brexit, and then the EU also came out with some laws with iOS. It's forcing retailers to get tax IDs in the UK, and so that the volume for cross-border went down slightly year over year. Yeah, so during the pandemic, I guess, right? That wasn't a direct impact of the pandemic. The pandemic increased online sales, and then these laws are contracting cross-border sales. And there's also been other things with supply chain and things like that have also impacted cross-border. So good than bad a little bit.
Right. So there has been challenges, but you've overcome them.
Oh yeah, for sure. As a company, we're growing, extremely quickly year over year, but that's because more and more companies want to sign up and get these type of services and provide a better experience for their shoppers. But a lot of our customers that are sticking with us, their business year over year has slowed down a little bit because of these complications.
And tell us about you're presenting here at WMX Americas. Tell us about your presentation.
Oh, it's all just super exciting stuff about tax. It's tax to historically, when packages are getting imported, are usually collected at the time of customs clearance, or not collected at all, like the country says, we're not going to worry about that. Well, a lot of these laws are changing, and the governments want their money for tax, and they're putting the onus on the exporter who's going to sell the goods to get a tax ID and then remit directly to them. And the U.S. went through something like this, years ago with Wayfair, and it's similar to happening on cross-border, and no one's ready for this. Like, it's been a mess. We have, customers that if it's below like 135 British pounds, they just don't sell anything into the country. Like, you have to buy more than that because they don't want to deal with getting the ID and remit directly. So, yeah, it's messy.
What's the one takeaway that you're hoping people to get from your presentation?
The historical way that duties and taxes have been collected, right? And they've been collected from the importer, from the person that's getting it. Like, they'll worry about it. Mm-hmm. That's going to shift. And not necessarily by choice. The retailers and these exporters are going to have to calculate ahead of time, collect it, and remit directly in many cases. The future, there's going to be a lot more of that, and it's not going to get easier, per se.
And so much of it must depend on choosing the right technology. How do you do that? Yeah,
so the problems in cross-border and shipping, they are rooted in code, for sure. It is in technology, and by selecting the right technology partner that can facilitate and almost streamline as much as possible, as close to a domestic transaction as you can, is the only way that we're going to win. If the technology isn't there, companies are going to continue to shut off international, right? It doesn't matter how good the logistics services are. So, yeah, the technology is essential.
And what about digital marketing? How important is that to Zonos?
So for our customers, it's super important. Now, for us to market to our customers, it's also somewhat important, but in our case, because we are we don't do shipping, right? So we're agnostic. We're just the tech. So lots of companies, UPS, FedEx, DHL, postal, providers, they refer us in, right, to help their customers. That's where a lot of our marketings come from. Mm-hmm.
And so do you rely on social media a lot for what you do?
We do a lot of social media, Would I say we rely on it? No, but I am shocked at how many people I see here and they're like, I see Zonos all the time. And I'm like, where are you seeing this? And I think it's all social media. Yeah.
And what do you think about CCL TV being here today at the event?
Yeah, no, excited you guys are here and doing some interviews. So very excited to see some of the other interviews after the event's over.
Well, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the rest of the conference. And thank you for watching CCL TV, brought to you by Aurora.